Hello and welcome to Everyday Lessons Every Day. I'm David McBee. Based on my book by the same name, this podcast is for those of us who believe in personal growth and want to improve every day. In this 2021 season, the stories come directly from people whose lives have been impacted in a positive way by an everyday lesson that they've learned. This is episode 33, Now What? With Bob Visotcky. Well, good morning, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing great, David. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited. I love that we connected on LinkedIn. We've had some personal work together way in the past, but that social media brought us together for this conversation, and I can't wait to hear more about your book and your lessons. So if you would just tell listeners just real briefly who you are and maybe why you're here on the show with me today.
Okay, well, my name is Bob Visotcky. I have been in the media industry for almost 40 years, and I've worked all over the country, 6 of the 10 top-rated markets. I've done some startups and turnarounds, and when I was displaced because of a merger, I invented a nightlight for real estate signs in 2006, and that was all over the country. 7 different countries I sold the listing light in, and now I wrote a book. I said every year I try to do something that gets me out of my comfort zone. And I never written anything in my life. And I said, you know what, I'm going to write a book. And I'll tell you why. When I was younger, nobody showed me the way, like from the transition from college to the real world. So I said, there's got to be a book about this. And, I want advice when I'm 22 years old and I don't know anything. So that's why I wrote the book called Now What? Real World Advice for Graduates.
You're my first actual author on Everyday Lessons, so that's exciting.
Wow, I'm honored.
Everybody else brings a lesson from a book or something that they've seen. You're going to tell us lessons from your own book, right?
Yes, and life experiences. I mean, the whole book basically talks about a life's journey, and the very last page of my book is how I want to be remembered. What's my legacy? So I think you take these kids on a journey, tell them that it's not an easy ride. It's a roller coaster, and they better be ready right out of college. And the other reason I wrote this book was because there were so many students that I interviewed over the years that just graduated. They didn't even know how to interview. And I'm like, God, somebody's got to teach these kids how to interview, how to invest, how to all kinds of advice. So that was another reason I wrote.
You know, it's crazy. I actually went to college for theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to be an actor back in the day, right?
Right.
And I remember getting out and going to auditions and realizing that in that whole process, no one had taught me how to audition. I had learned to act. I thought I was a pretty decent actor, but auditions were so foreign to me and I just came to them unprepared. So, the real world equivalent is just what you just described, right? I have this big, beautiful college degree that cost me $30,000 or $40,000 or maybe more, right? Now what?
Right.
Now what's the perfect name for your book? That's great.
I know. Hey, so here, listen to this. This is a great story. So right out of college, I went to West Virginia University, and right out of college, I said to myself, I'm going to cancel spring break and I'm going to go to New York and get a job in the #1 market. And everybody thought I was crazy. You're in West Virginia. You're working at a small radio station in West Virginia. You're not going to go to New York. So I'm like, you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it.
You were like Clark Kent coming from Smallville and knocking on the Daily Planet's door.
That's right, without the glasses. So anyway, I go to New York and I get 2 out of 3 jobs. One is WPLJ, which is the #1 rock station in the country at the time. So my first day at work, you remember Herb Tarlick from WKRP in Cincinnati?
I do remember him.
Plaid sport coat, didn't dress well, disheveled, everything. I had platform disco shoes on and a plaid sport coat my first day and got basically laughed off the floor. And my bosses immediately took me out, bought me suits, bought me ties, and I bought the book Dress for Success the very next day, and you've never seen me dress bad since. So, that was one hard lesson I learned day one, right at WPLJ in New York.
You were so lucky to have bosses that took you under their wing and really just went out and showed you the way to dress. That's fantastic.
I will never forget that. And listen to this. This is true. I was working at the station, and this kid walks in, and he wasn't dressed. In the business of radio, we always wore a suit and tie. So this guy comes in, and I said, "What are you here for?" And he goes, "I'm here for account executive interview." I said, "I'm not dressed like that." I said, so I'll tell you what do you know about my radio stations? He goes, I was on your website. I said, yeah, what do you know about them? He goes, I said, listen, I'll tell you what, this interview's over. I need you to go home. And if you really want to work here, I want you to go to the website, know everything about these radio stations, and wear a suit and tie tomorrow. To give the kid credit, he came back the next day and he knew more about the radio stations than I did. I hired him and it was great. But it was a great life lesson that, and the reason that I gave him a second chance is because he wasn't shown the way. And that's what I'm trying to do in this book, is give these guys a little bit of advice that I wish I would have known before I got into these situations.
So I don't know if I don't think this story is going to align with yours, but funny story. I was at the headquarters for my company one day, and a guy walks in wearing a suit and tie.
Right.
And you could tell he's out of place, because in our world, no one dresses like that. Right. And I was like, are you here for an interview? He's like, yeah, I am. I'm like, lose the tie.
Yeah. No, it's true. You have to dress for the situation you're in. Like I live in San Diego, so I've never seen anybody with a suit and tie on here. That's strange.
So I asked you to come to this interview with a couple of your favorite lessons from the book to share with the listeners. Do you have one that you want to share right away?
Yeah, I have plenty. First of all, this is the most important thing that I could tell anybody that's about to graduate. If money and resources were no object, write down what you want out of this life. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care how hard it is to do. Write it down. You have a 42% higher chance of it happening by writing it down. And I'll tell you, David, this is my favorite story. When I was 22 years old, I just got the job at PLJ, and I says, all right, by age 30, I wrote these down. I said, by age 30, I want to be a general manager of a radio station. I want to have my own house, and I want to have a 450 SL Mercedes-Benz convertible. Okay. So when I give my speeches, I have a slide and it shows, these are the things that I wanted at age 30. On my 30th birthday, I was general manager of 1035 The Fox in Denver for J-Core Communications. I built a brand new house that I designed, and I had a 450 SL convertible parked in the garage. This is what you need to do. Dreams do come true when you write things down. And that's number one piece of advice I have.
Have you ever done a dream board?
I have. Yeah. I think that's very important too. Like have photos up on a board.
Yeah.
That's real important. So yeah, if kids out there could we want to talk about it a little bit? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I pulled one of my dream boards out the other day that I had made a decade ago.
Right.
And had almost everything on it. And I was just like, holy crud.
It worked.
I know there are going to be people listening saying, well, you might have achieved those goals anyway. And they would say the same thing about you writing down your what you wanted to be by the time you're 30.
Right.
Writing it down didn't necessarily make it happen.
Right.
But from where I'm coming from, I think it has a big impact on it. I absolutely do.
Well, you touched on visualization. So writing it down and visualizing it are very, very important. Like think about a regular golfer like you or me, we're not professional. When we go to a hole and we see a sand trap on the right and water on the left, we see a sand trap on the right and water on the left. A pro says, I'm going to hit it 10 yards right of the water on the left. That's how he thinks. And that's where the ball goes. So I always say, think about where you want it to go. And I don't just write goals down once every 10 years. I write them down every year, same time every year. The third week of December, I write down everything that I didn't accomplish this year, and hopefully it'll happen next year. But I'm probably on 15 lists of check marks, just like you just said with your visual board. You write things down. The girl asked me yesterday, she goes, I always wanted to write a book. I said, what's stopping you? And she's like, what do you mean? I says, people that talk about it never do it. People that do it just do it, and they don't talk about it. So I said, open your laptop tonight and start writing. So she called me the next day and she says, I started writing my book, and I felt good, probably better than she did. So just start, man, start. I mean, you want to. I'll give you a great one. This is how turning a bad situation into a good situation. So after I get fired in a merger, I'm running LA, right? Biggest job I ever made, more money than I ever made in my life. I come down to San Diego and I go, now what? What am I going to do? So I got my real estate license and I went to a lady around the block. She's like, I don't know, around the block, maybe a mile away. And I said, hey, why are you selling your house by yourself? I'm a real estate agent. I know how to market. I know all that stuff. Oh, Bob, I like what you're saying. why don't you come back Friday? I go back Friday. She's sick as a dog. She's got the flu. So I said, listen, I'm going away, but I did 2 hours of research on your property in this area, and I live here and I know all about it. I could really sell this house. She goes, come back Monday when I feel better and I'll sign the contract. Well, I come back Monday. Oh, Bob, I panicked. I listed with another agent. I'm like, well, I said, listen, I'm disappointed. I'm not mad. I said, but all we have as a real estate agent is time. So please don't waste the next agent's time. So she goes, all right. 2 days later, it's 6 o'clock in February, 6 o'clock or 6:30 in February. I go by to see who got the listing, and I couldn't read it. I couldn't read the sign. I said, I'm going to light these things up. That's how I invented the listing light, the night light for real estate signs, and sold them in 7 different countries. And it was a huge success until 2008 came. But you know what? When you go in, go all in. Don't go in, there should be no plan B. That's another lesson for kids. Try to have plan A and just plan A, because plan B is an excuse. And I don't believe in excuses. When people come into my office and give me an excuse, I go, give me a solution. I don't want an excuse. So I think millennials are very excuse driven, but this new crop of kids that are in college right now that are just about ready to graduate, it excites the hell out of me, because they're like the baby boomers. These kids are the ones that try to find a way to make things happen. They want to own their own businesses. They want to be creative. I'm very excited. That's another reason this book couldn't have come out at a better time, because coming out of the pandemic, and think what happened after the swine flu, the Roaring 20s. It was the greatest time in history. We're about to have an explosion in this country in a good way. And I hope these kids, they didn't waste their time during the pandemic to do nothing and sit on the couch and play video games. This is the time when you really have to think and create about your future and what you want to be. So
That's awesome. That is fantastic. I can't wait for my kids to hear this episode. This is great.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, they'll like it. You want more advice?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, absolutely. Give me another one.
All right, these are the ones that really helped me growing up. Save 10% of every check you make. And if you invested in mutual funds or stuff like that, you'll be able to retire in your 40s if you want to retire. I personally don't ever want to retire. I love working. The player versus victim. There's a book out where the guy talks about players and victims. People who come to work that have a positive attitude. My ex-wife always had a great line. She said, if attitudes are contagious, is yours worth catching? I loved that.
Wait, repeat that. That is fantastic.
If attitudes are contagious, is yours worth catching?
Yeah, that's good.
Isn't that good? I mean,
that's really
wow. Good. And David, I don't know about you, but I've hired and fired a lot of people in my life. I know in 5 minutes if I'm going to hire somebody just from their positive attitude. I could teach anybody with a positive attitude, but that negative Nancy, I don't want her on my team. It brings that's another lesson. If these kids ever become management, get the negative players off your team. So this guy wrote a book about players and victims. Victims are, oh, I didn't do it, or oh, there's an excuse, he did it or she did it. Players are like, you're right, I did it. I take full responsibility, and I'll find a way to make it better. My other daughter, Sophia, she said a good one. She goes, most people want to compare themselves to somebody, And she says, I like to connect with somebody. So if somebody's smarter than you or has more money or has more real estate, find out how they got there. Connect with them. 99% of every job I've gotten, I got through knowing someone, not from sending my resume. Okay. The resume, I think, is such a waste of time. All these job boards and stuff, send your resume, you got to know somebody, do some research, find out who's there on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn all the time. This is another great tip. If you're on LinkedIn and you see somebody that you really like, look who they're connected to. I've sold so many extra things just by looking at that one section.
Wait, I don't normally drop my own lessons in on my interviews, but because we were talking about LinkedIn, I just have to throw this out.
Do it.
I get prospected on LinkedIn almost every day. Almost every day, someone will ping me with some generic copy paste BS message that just it annoys the crud out of me. And it's not because I'm getting prospected. It's because they didn't take 3 seconds to look up who David McBee was and then say something that indicates that they did their research, right?
Right.
So on occasion, I'll get somebody say, hey, I really want to talk to you about this software, blah, blah, blah. I notice you're from Kansas City and that you love barbecue. And I'm like, okay, I'll talk to this person just because you took 2 seconds to look at my LinkedIn profile or look me up and see that that was one of my passions. Or, hey, David, I drive a Jeep too. I love some of your Jeep videos, and I'd really like to chat with you about this software. I'm like, okay, I gotta talk to this guy. Like,
Oh, that's
I need new
great.
software, but he drives a Jeep. We gotta connect. I think I want to throw that in there too as my advice for people who are looking to connect on LinkedIn. Take 2 freaking seconds, look at the person, look at their profile, and say something in your outreach to indicate that you did your homework.
Right. Do the research. Like I said, you have all these tools at your fingertips. Use them.
That really goes right back to your very first story with the kid in the suit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. All right. You know how they say always look for a job with a job?
Yep.
This will be the greatest story I tell you. How much time do we have? Are we okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. This is the greatest story. So I'm working in Philadelphia. I'm 29 years old. This is just before I get the general manager job. Okay. So I'm 29 years old. I'm working in Philadelphia for this guy who's not a nice man. And this lady who's the business manager, she's sitting in the office. We were having a staff meeting. So she's sitting in the office with all the department heads, and her husband is the chief engineer for the radio station. But the general manager is sitting behind his desk, and he is berating her. Like, I've never seen anybody talk to a woman like that. And her husband's sitting right next to him, right? So after the meeting, you're going to love this. I said, after the meeting, I said, can I close the door? I need to talk to you. He goes, yeah, sure. Now I'm making $165,000. I'm 29 years old working in Philadelphia at a big radio station. Okay. I said, if you ever talked to my wife or my girlfriend the way you just talked to Lori, I would beat the living hell out of you. I says, I quit. I cannot work for you. Now, who gives up a $165,000 job at 29 years old? So I did. I packed up my stuff. I walked out. I have a house on the Jersey Shore at the time. I go to the Jersey Shore, and it's about 3 weeks before 4th of July. So I had an interview for a general sales manager job in Chicago with my friend Mike Donovan, and then the general manager job for Jacor Communications in Cincinnati. So the guy in Chicago goes, Bob, and it's 4th of July week. He goes, Bob, I need an answer by 3 o'clock on Thursday if you want this job. If not, it's gone. I said, okay. So I call up Frank Wood, the president of Jacor Communications. I said, hey, Frank, is there any way you can make a decision on the GM job by Thursday at 3 o'clock? He goes, no. I said, really? He goes, yeah, no. I said, okay. So 3 o'clock comes along, and I got a house full of guys because I used to teach barefoot water skiing on the Jersey Shore. And all these guys are at my house, and they're all sitting on the couch, and they go, Bob, this guy, Glazer, he goes to me, he goes, so Bobby boy, what are you going to do? It's almost 3 o'clock. I said, I'll let you know at 3. So 3 o'clock comes along. I call up Mike Donovan. I said, hey, Mike, Bob Visotcky. I said, if you need an answer at 3 o'clock, it's no. I have a chance to be a general manager. It's my goal in life to be a general manager. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the risk. 10 after 3, the phone rings. It's the board of directors from Jacor Communications. And Frank Wood gets on the phone. He goes, Bob, you're on the phone with all the boys from Jacor here. We all want to know what you told the guy from Chicago. I said, I told him no because I want to work for you guys. He goes, good, you got the job. That's risk taking, baby.
That is fantastic.
So get out of your damn comfort zone and take some risks. I mean, that's putting it all out there. But you know what? If you want some, this guy, I think his name is E.A. Prince. He has some videos online on YouTube, and I say highly recommend them. He says there's a pain of success. There's two types of pain: the pain of success and the pain of doubt. Okay, most people, like when I wanted to do the list, like, oh, nobody will buy them. It's a terrible idea. You know, a zillion reasons why it won't work. And I didn't hear any of those. I only heard, I'm going to make this thing happen. I'm going to go get it done. Right. It cost me $34,000 to work in New York City, and they only paid me $22,000 my first year. So how bad do you want it? You know, you got to really want it. So that's the pain of success. It's hard getting what you want, but if you work hard, you're going to get it. So the pain of doubt, yeah. Oh, that'll never happen. How many times do you hear that? Oh, I'll never get that. I'll never do this. Last thing is, don't surround yourself with mediocrity. Mediocrity gets you nowhere. Negative friends get you nowhere. Everybody has a negative friend. Everybody has a cheap friend. Get rid of those too. Those guys, I have no time for a cheap person. It's such a turnoff, not only to guys, and if you're trying to get a date, forget that. You know, just don't be cheap.
Well, you've given me about a million everyday lessons. I have no idea how I'm going to put a title on this one, but maybe we'll just call this one Now What? to really promote your book, because I want everybody out there to pick it up.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate it.
Tell you what, why don't you let everyone know how they can get a hold of you or a hold of your book?
My website is Bob Visotcky, VISOTCKY.com. BobVisotcky.com. Everything's on there. It tells you how to get in touch with me. If you want to send me an email, it's bvisotcky@gmail.com. I speak at colleges. That's what I love to do. So if you know anybody in the college space that is looking for somebody to talk about their future, I would love to do it. But I have a lot of fun, exciting stuff to talk about. And I'm pretty entertaining in person because I do a lot of interaction with people. So it's fun.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was fun, David. I appreciate it.
Very cool. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. I gotta say, when I asked Bob to be on the podcast, I suggested he pick one or two of his favorite everyday lessons from the book and share them with us. Little did I know we'd be getting a master's class in success principles, which is great, right? And I really don't think that the everyday lessons in this episode are exclusive to recent graduates. Yes, I am excited for my kids to hear this one, but I was also reminded of some great strategies that I need to implement again, specifically writing down my goals. I haven't done that in a while, and I think it might be time to build a new vision board. And so I challenge you, write "now what" on your wrist. Then take even one lesson from this episode and implement it in your life. Maybe like me, you're going to write down your goals. Maybe you're going to take big risks or write that book you've always wanted to write. Maybe it's as simple as getting to know people that can help you achieve your goals. It's totally up to you, but take some kind of an action that will make you a little better than you are right now. Let me know what happens when you implement this lesson by reaching out to me personally or posting your story on social media with the hashtag #EverydayLessonsEveryday. And if you like this podcast, please share it with a friend. Let's see if together we can make the world a better place. Finally, if you or someone you know has an everyday lesson that they'd like to share, I'd love to hear from them. Put us in touch. I can be reached at david@davidmcbee.com. I'll see you next time. Now go out there and do something awesome.